What's up? I'm Pip and this is Brewin on a Budget. Today's deck is an Anthem tribal deck starring Masha, Break to Guard Protector. Comes in at a smooth $69 on TCG Player. Nice. Now, let's talk strategy. This deck is an Anthem tribal deck, and we've got a whopping 27 cards in there that dish out those sweet Anthem effects to help you channel your inner Timmy. To make a deck like this work, we're gonna need a lot of bodies. And with a hearty 44 creatures in the mix, we'll be flooding the board and then pumping their stats like you wouldn't believe. But wait, there's more. Our ramp game? It's all about the creatures. It's mana dorks or land fetching creatures for us. We're aiming to trigger our commander and up our land count at the same time. We're putting it all out there on the line. We're gonna need some insurance. That's why we've got 5 cards in here that'll make our entire team indestructible at instant speed. Well, what about tokens, you might ask? We've got 13 cards in the deck that'll churn out these little critters ready to swarm the battlefield and double as our late game mana sinks. But let's not sugarcoat it. Every rose has its thorn, and this deck is no exception. We're a bit light on card draw and removal, so we'll need to cherish the few tools that we do have and wield them wisely. If bullying your opponents with big beefy creatures sounds like your cup of tea, hold on tight because you won't want to miss this. Let's dive in. If you're itching to see the entire deck list, saunter on down to the description and give that link a click. Starting with our commander, Maha. She's a little bit pricey, but we do have plenty of ramp to help us get there early, and a handful of ways to keep triggering that landfall. So she's going to spit out bodies and Anthem our team, checking 2 boxes at once. We're going to be running 2 planeswalkers in this deck. First up is Ajani the Great-Hearted. First of all, he's going to give our whole team vigilance. His +1 is kind of irrelevant for us. We're not really going to need the life, but his -2 is going to put a 1/1 counter on each creature we control, which is essentially an Anthem. Next up, Elspeth, Sun's Champion. The +1 is going to create 3 1/1 soldier tokens, which we have a little synergy for, you'll see later. And her -7, which is going to take us a little while to get to, is going to give us a permanent Anthem effect in the form of an emblem. Gary Clone. This is going to be a late game mana dump that's going to give us a bunch more bodies, and it's going to synergize with itself to make them even bigger. Selesnya Guildmage. It's going to be a pumpable Anthem and a token generator. Veteran Armorer. This is a nice cheap body that gives us a defensive Anthem. Something to get us on board early and start doing some damage. Trepid Adversary. I love this card. So this card has lifelink, and each time we kick it for 2 mana, we're going to put another 1/1 counter on it, and it's going to Anthem our team for each 1/1 counter on it. This card could steal you a few wins in the late game pretty easily. Rootborn Defenses. This is just going to help protect our team from board wipes. And create another token. Abzan Beastmaster. You can have your upkeep draw a card if you control the creature with the greatest toughness, or tied for the greatest toughness. With all our Anthems going around, I'm pretty sure we're going to have the biggest creature just about every time our turn rolls around. Make a Stand. This is another card that's going to protect us from board wipes and do an extra little bit of damage if we need to. Dauntless Escort. 3/3 body for 3, and it's going to protect our team from board wipes. Plus, it's a soldier. More on that in a minute. Unbreakable Formation. Another card that's going to protect our team or help us end a game. King Darian. Anthem on a body, and he's going to be a late game mana dump for us to create even more bodies. Plus, if you really need to, you can sacrifice them to protect your tokens. Kupsil, Malamute Exemplar. This is going to stop any funny business from happening during your turn, and you're going to draw an extra card just about every turn. Benalish Marshal. Benalish Marshal. Is it Benalish or Benalish? I don't know, we always said Benalish as kids. Just another Anthem on a body. Pretty middle of the road. These creatures are the bread and butter of this deck. Always Watching. This is an Anthem for our non-token creatures that also gives them vigilance. Your temple is under attack. This card's going to help protect our team, or give us an extra little gas if we need to. Champion of Lamholt. I'm imagining we're going to have enough Anthems out. This is going to make all of our creatures unblockable most of the time, which is going to allow us to really bully the whole table. In the Trenches. Here's a pretty standard Anthem effect, but once per game, you're going to be able to exile target non-land permanent you don't control. One of our few pieces of removal. Spear of Heliod. Very similar to the previous card, but this one you're going to be able to destroy creatures that hit you. This should help to de-incentivize people from cracking you back. Rook's Uprising. This is going to give our creatures trample and let us cycle our creatures for even more cards. Adaptive Automaton. Here's another cheap Anthem on a body. This isn't going to hit all of our creatures all the time, but it should do some good work. Celestial Crusader. This is White Anthem, on a body at instant speed. Could be what we need to steal a game, or make a very advantageous block. You're a Vindicator. This one is pretty slow. One of our weaker creatures, but I'm gonna see how it goes. And it's important to just stack up on these Anthem effects. Commander's Insignia. This is an Anthem that's gonna grow every single time somebody deals with our commander, which you don't really want, but we also do want to de-incentivize them from doing that. Kongming, Sleeping Dragon. This is just another Anthem on a body. It's at a little worse rate than some of the others, but like I said, we just want to stack up on these effects. Marshall's Anthem. This one's a little expensive to cast, but late game, if you kick it a bunch of times, you're going to recur a bunch of the cards that have been dealt with and just give us some more gas. We can consider this a form of card draw. Space Marine Devastator. I love these squad cards. They give us some real great late game mana dumps, and also further our plan of going wide. This one's going to deal with some pesky artifacts or enchantments when it comes into play. This is the only effect like that in this deck. It's a Raven Watcher, another body with an Anthem attached to it. This one's only going to help our non-tokens, but it's going to give them Vigilance as well. Force of Virtue, arguably the worst force card in the game, but in this deck I think it's going to work pretty well. Wilt Leaf Liege. Here's another Anthem effect for us, and for some reason if someone makes us discard it, it's free. Ultramarines Honor Guard. Here's another squad card. This one has an Anthem attached to it. I've kicked this 4 times in a turn before and it is disgusting. Ulvenwald Oddity. This is a 4/4 trample haste on the front side, but late game we can spend 7 mana, flip it over to become, surprise surprise, an Anthem. That also gives our creatures trample and haste. The trample is going to be particularly beneficial in this deck, as most of our creatures are going to be huge. Beast Whisperer, one of our few card draw cards in the deck. I'd protect this one when you can, or just hold it in your hand till late game, and you can cast it with a few other creatures. Sovereign Okonek. I'm not sure how good this card's going to be, because it needs to untap and be able to attack to do anything, but when it does, it's basically going to double the power and toughness of all the creatures that are attacking each turn. Toski, Bearer of Secrets. And this is the best card draw card in the deck, and you're going to want to hold it until you have a turn where you can be able to draw 3, 4, 5 cards guaranteed. When you do, boy, is it going to be sweet. Trostani Discordant. Here's another Anthem on a body for 5 mana, which is a little pricey, but it's also going to create 2 1/1 soldiers that have lifelink when it hits play. And in the off case that somebody stole some of your permanents, you're going to get them back at the end of the turn. Asceticism. This is going to give all of our creatures hexproof and allow us to regenerate. This is just some good late game creature protection. Ambush Commander. This is a fun one. All of your forests are going to become 1/1 green elf creatures. Obviously you want to hold this for when you have more than 5 mana so they can actually attack, but if this comes down late game and you have 8, 9 lands, that's going to be a lot of damage out of nowhere that people don't see coming. Angel of Invention. Here's another Anthem on a body that can also create 2 more bodies as it comes into play, or get a little bigger to protect itself. Captain the Watch. This is an Anthem just for our soldiers, but we incidentally have quite a few soldiers, and it's going to create 3 bodies as it comes into play. Tulsimir Wolfblood. Here's an Anthem on a body for just about our whole team, plus it's going to create a token each turn if we need to. Champions of Minas Tirith. This card's going to bring the Monarch into play, which is beneficial for us because we are going to be aggressive. It's also going to make it tougher for your opponents to attack you, which is going to allow you to swing out without fearing too much retribution. Underfoot Baloth. As long as we control our commander, this is going to be a huge Anthem, plus trample for our entire team. This is a good way to end the game. Alright, I'm gonna hit pause real quick just to ask you to smash that like and subscribe button. Looking at the data over on my supercomputer, I can see that only 1% of you nerds who watch my videos are subscribed. Now, I'm gonna have to sell my kidneys if I don't get about, 32% of you guys to subscribe to my channel. Alright, back to the video. We're gonna be running a bunch of ramp in the form of dorks, Avison's Pilgrim, Elvish Mystic, Long War Elves, classic, Finhorn Elves, isn't that the same card? Druid of the Cowl, Leaf Gilder, Wirewood Elf, Lawn War Visionary, which is also going to draw us a card, Elvish Archdruid, end up being a ton of mana, and an Anthem for our other dorks. A ramp package is also going to come in the form of creatures that bring lands into play from our deck. First up, Sakura Tribe Elder, Yavimaya Dryad, Wood Elves, and Quarian Trailblazer. Our mana package is also going to include Sol Ring and Arcane Signet. Just in case they board wipe, we don't lose everything. We only have 2 colors, so I don't think it's going to be that important for us to fix that often. We're going to reserve a bunch of our land slots for utility and basics to ensure that they come into play untapped. If you have the money to spend, feel free to get some more duels that come into play untapped, but I'm looking to keep the budget down, so that's not what I'm doing here. First off, we have Botanical Plaza. This enters play tap, which isn't good, but it allows us to draw a card later in the game if we need to. Rogue's Passage. This one's here in case we need to get through some late game damage. Canopy Vista. With the amount of basics we're running, I can imagine this is going to come into play untapped most of the time. Castle Ardenvale. This is a token generator on a land, which is pretty nice. Command Tower, obviously. Restless Prairie. I do like to run man lands in my commander decks when I'm playing a bunch of anthems. I've lost count number of commander games I've won because people forgot about my man lands, especially when I have anthems in play. They get pretty big. So with that in mind, we're also going to be adding Stirring Wildwood. Neither of these are particularly on theme, but creating a creature that dodges board wipes is going to be pretty important. Sacred Groves. Another tap land, but this one we're able to cycle if we don't need it later in the game. Sungrass Prairie. As long as this isn't our first land, should be fine. Sun Petal Grove. I imagine this is going to be entering play untapped most of the time. Temple of Plenty. This one's going to allow us to keep a little sketchier of hands. Windbrisk Heights. If we've attacked with 3 creatures this turn, we're going to be able to essentially draw a card that we hid away. In a deck with this little card draw, I think this is going to be pretty beneficial. Kalani Gardens. Feel free to skip this one if you want to keep the price a little lower, but a land that produces a body on ETB is going to be pretty nice with all these anthems. Boney Township. This is just a late game mana dump in the form of a land. Feel free to drop this one if you don't like it. It is a little expensive. Razor Verge Thicket. I think you should play the fast lands in most all of your 2-color decks, so I put this one in here. We're going to be running 13 plains and 12 forests. So that's the deck. What did you think of it? I'm going to be putting this deck together this week and getting some games in. If you end up putting it together, let me know how it goes. What you'd add, what you'd take out, does it work at all? Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.